Yeah, so my life experiences on how it shaped diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, Man, so when we go back even from my childhood, you know, I was born here in America, right, in Rhode Island, and then my childhood from like 6 to 9 years old, I was raised in the Dominican Republic. I learned how to ride bikes, how to play in the neighborhood, how to play tag at night, manhunt, all those good games, right? But it was interesting for me, the shock, even just growing up, kind of the arrogance I brought to the table because I was born in America. So seeing that difference, and the community kind of taught me, thankfully. The community gave me those lessons to humble myself and to show respect. And when you go into someone's home, you're in their home. So you got to abide by their rules. If you tell me to take off your shoes, I'm going to take them off. I'm not going to ask you why, because this is your house, right? So when we go into diversity, equity, and inclusion, that small span of time that I got to kind of be with my people, it really kind of taught me when I got older those same values and bring them to the table. And when we go into different spaces now, right, we go into different homes and different countries or different cultures, it's the same thing. You listen, you pay attention, and then this whole new world is kind of exposed. It's kind of brought out, and people invite you to it eventually once they see that it's safe, that you can be part, that you could understand, and you're not hostile in a sense. And that's a whole other world of learning, a whole other network of people, all kinds of traditions that now you can be exposed, and your life can, at least my life, definitely have more flavor to it. And that's a little spiel of that. And I can dive into, I studied abroad, we can go into that, or cool. And so when we talk about like more practically speaking in terms of the different homes, thankfully I got to study abroad during my undergrad in Bhutan. I also went to Ghana, and specifically in Bhutan, it was interesting to see people feel safe around me, and in a sense where I would go to their homes with no problems, and they would talk about, oh Ben, you're a little different than most Americans that we see. I'm like, okay, well that might be, I was raised in the Dominican Republic. I bring these different values to the table. And then once they see how they can be with me, they kind of they opened up more. Okay, well Ben, this is a go, and this is a kira. This is what people wear here. I'm gonna tell you how to wear it. You know what? Don't even buy it. I'm gonna give you one. I want you to represent who we are, either here or in the U.S. The same thing in Ghana. Those different, all those called jollof rice and all those things, right? Like people then entrust you to bring these things to the spaces you go to, and it's all really a learning experience, and that to me gives me life. To make sure that I can dive into all these different things and experience these things from different views and different avenues. And then the beautiful part of equity, inclusion, and diversity is the fact that now is a melting pot, and now I can mix my pastelitos and tostones with jollof and have these different combinations. And that's just the food. We talk about dance, we talk about relationships. There's so many other things that really blows up. I've seen growing up, my parents specifically, in terms of language, because thankfully, I got the skin privilege, when we talk about the colors and how to maneuver, and so thankfully I haven't been directly affected in a way. Maybe I haven't noticed, but I know for sure, growing up as a kid, I still have memories, and I think that affects my behavior in terms of always kind of like saying thank you a million times to people, bowing, because I remember I still remember when I was a kid. My parents, we were at a grocery store, and I can still remember I was short. I'm short now, but I was still short at that time because I would be by the candies, right? I'm the kid. I'm like, before we check out, Mom, can I get a Snickers? I'm like, cállate, no hay dinero, we don't have money for that right now. And I still remember, I think she was trying to speak English to the cashier, and the cashier snapped. You're like, oh, I don't understand you. Don't talk to me. You don't speak English, this and that. And as a little kid, my mom's my everything, and I saw her get hurt from it. And that was one instance in that. And similar instances in terms of like doctors and going into emergency rooms. Like I used to making appointments with my parents. I'm learning the language in this space now as I get older, and now growing up seeing how my parents have been discriminated in terms of a language, right? Maybe their English is not the best, and someone just comes down on them for that, and so. Seeing that, I've always been whenever there's authority, I've always been very shaky and scared, and I want to make sure that everything is perfect. When I go to a doctor's office, I know exactly what I need. I know exactly how to communicate it. This kind of perfection, pressure and stress before the event even happens. And that's just one instance of kind of seeing discrimination within my family. with myself, I don't, maybe I put it in the back of my mind, because I try to make sure that, my stories and who I am doesn't define me, and doesn't block me. So I think, but I know for sure that experience with my parents have always affected me as I grew up, that I could tell as of right now. Oh, in terms of talking about, my skin privilege, I appreciate the question, because to be completely honest, now that the movement is popping, right? Like now we're in the culture that, and like Black Lives Matter and all these things are now becoming the norm. A few years back, I wouldn't recognize my skin privilege, and I think with time as I grew and I understood the different experiences my friends were having, I don't get pulled over as many times from the police as my friend. He's a lot darker than me. He's Nigerian. He's like, Ben, like I cannot go to a party and take even a sip of a drink, because I know if I get pulled over, it can lead to multiple things. I have to be on my A game. So we're related in a sense that just like I prepare 100% before I meet a doctor and making appointments, right? Like that experience, he has a whole list, a bigger list than I do in terms of navigating certain spaces because of his skin color. And I can be a camouflage. I've been told, my friend, she's Palestinian, and she's like, Ben, are you from the Middle East? I'm like, whoa, no, like I'm Dominican, Oh, Ben, are you Italian? So all these different, I can mix and merge. When I was in Bhutan, when I would wear the go, which is the national wear there, I would normally, taxi drivers or people in the streets can pick you up and like give you a ride. But when I wore that go, I never got a ride. Nobody ever offered anything, but I was only with the other tourists who were even lighter than me, right? And could tell that we had American clothes on, or like American style. People would be like, oh, do you need a ride? It's free. And we could walk into certain spaces that other spaces we can't. With my skin tone, I have a camouflage, there's a safety net around that. That took me some time to recognize and mature. And seeing how my friends and my close relatives would walk into certain rooms, and if I walk behind them, I saw, okay, that's totally different. Why we should be having these conversations, because it's growth, it's real, it's the life that we live in right now, specifically in America. So if these conversations I had, then we're really blocking a part of life experiences that are there, that are honestly there, and people want to connect, right? Especially in today's world that, we're connected virtually, but, people are lonely, and now, we see so much stress, so much anxiety, so much depression. And in my previous work, I work with high school students, and seeing that in a developmental stage of a child, and like, that can have such an effect as you get older and you grow up. And Russ, one of my favorite artists, talks about the lessons in life get more expensive the older you get, and that's true. And when you never experienced this flavor or this style of living, you just think that your way is the right way. That can be very toxic, and it can become kind of like a puddle of mud that, what is it, like a river that doesn't flow is not clean water. It just becomes set in this way, and this is it, and you have now mosquitoes and different things in there instead of clean water and a life. Because life is, you gotta have different experiences. If everything is always the same, to me that's hell on earth. So having those conversations with people and really experiencing difference is the flavor of life, and I think it can be a solution to so many problems that we're having nowadays, and personal problems. That's just one place to it too. We could talk about economics, and we could talk about all these other spaces that, brain power, intellect, right, and just oh my God, like creating new things. Innovation, those things, we could talk about those things as well if we want to look at it in a business way, in a capitalistic way, and see the real advantages of those things if you want to look at it that way. But personally, like I think those relationships are valuable, and especially during COVID, right? Like now we see at least I've seen how necessary it is when we take a break from the hustle and bustle, how important it is to have connection and know the person in your bodega that has been giving you the same bread for 20 years or 15 years, and they know you by name, and they know your aunt and your titi and everybody. Like that is something you can't buy, you can't fake, you can't go and make a like out of it. You build those things, and I think the fact that Rick is very special because the majority of our students are of color, commuters, and I think that makes Rick such a unique dynamic across other colleges and universities. So I think you know, we have the community, and we're literally in the community. Our campus is in the community. So I think we're there. It's just in terms of our authority as an institution. Are we gonna oppress with it, or are we gonna welcome people with it? You know, the same thing. Let me put it in a metaphor that understands with my life and my experience. When I would meet a doctor, I want everything to be perfect, right? But that experience came from someone making my first interaction with a doctor to be negative. So now I know every single time I have this, I know I gotta be, and that's very stressful. And there's no need. It's not that serious, you know. So when we look at an institution, you know, the institution has a white coat. It has an authority. You know, education is seen this way. That's why you gotta have a professional dress code. These different things. But if professional dress code is never something I've done, why would you look at me negative because I'm bringing you my best dress, but it might not be the norm for you? You know, so when we look at it, the institution itself, sometimes I was reading this book by Chris Edmondson. He teaches hip hop ed. That itself is a welcome. It's a huge welcome to. I love Nipsey Hussle. I love Russ. I love these artists. And if you bring me an English class that I could just go in about these quotes and these you know, Tupac and like the things that they're saying and their time, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because I know I'm gonna get an A+. You know what? I could probably teach that class. You know, and when you bring students, and that's just the academic side of it, right? If you bring students where the strength is within their culture and recognize that as an institution, you're opening the door like, please come in, show us what you got, you know, bring your full. And when we look at the development of students, that's really what learning is, just developing and growing. And when you give my growth from my natural point, my organic point, then that's the way that I always felt the most appreciated as a student. When those instructors in the classroom told me, you know what, Ben, this curriculum, it might not be the best for you right now, but you know what, maybe this book, why don't you write your essay about this? Or why don't you actually do the project on this? Maybe we could change it a little bit. And those professors were the ones that were pivotal in my growth. And now I read on my free time, you know, like I like diving into books because they really tapped into my curiosity. They knew like, okay, well, I see this in Ben. Why not make this happen? You know, so, and that's just the academic side of it. In terms of just the structures, right? When we talk about, we know in academia there's a language. You know, there is a language. What is bursars? You know, like no one, my ELL, I didn't know. I'm like, what is, you know, and not saying that those things are wrong, because obviously those things came from a time before there were Dominicans in this country, right? Which is okay, but also, you know, let's face the reality of students are constantly asking these things, and students are not understanding these things, and maybe now we need to evolve. Now we got to change. So, I think those are kind of the main points I can think of from the top of my head. But and those small changes, those small situations, and we can even talk about having people of color as staff. Right? Like those are so many factors to it. They really invite, you know, differences to the table. And when those things are on the table, especially in a learning setting, there's no stopping. The potential is unlimited, because now you're mixing everything. And when learning is beautiful when you get, because that's your career, you're tapping into it all. You got all these colors, you got all these people, you have all these life experiences. I still remember the day that, and let me know if I'm talking too much. Okay. I still remember the day when one of our professors at Lynn Derbyshire, I love this woman. She's the head of the honor department at URI. And she was one of our professors, thankfully. And we had a whole class about the isms, right? And that she opened my eyes to inequalities. I didn't know. I was right. I got camouflaged. So I'm like, whatever, you know. I never knew that. Mostly, I saw it when she taught me. I put a language to things. You know, I saw these things, but she gave me the language to identify and categorize these things. And I remember one of the projects, she told me like, oh, Ben, you know, when you write a paper about this, it's about reaching across the aisle, basically meeting someone or creating a dialogue about something that you're uncomfortable with. So I remember there was a student who was in a wheelchair, and I remember I randomly just walked up to her and started having a conversation. Hey, I got this project and I really want to interview you. Let's have this, you know, are you willing to have this conversation with me? Thankfully, she said yes. And she was like, you know, Ben, I appreciate you coming up to me and asking me, because a lot of people just assume that my accident was because I got into a car accident. But really, I was climbing a tree as a kid. I fell, and one of my vertebrae got this, like, there was an issue with it. I need surgery, so then I could walk. It's not like I'm going to be in this wheelchair forever. you know. And she was like, you know, the experiences I've had when I was able-bodied, as they say, to now having to be, it's totally different, you know. It's totally different. But people think that just because I'm in the switch, I'm useless. And sometimes people don't even see me. They don't say hello to me. And she's like, so I appreciate you even just coming up to me and asking instead of just assuming and like making a transaction out of this assignment. And to this day, we're still connected. We're connected through LinkedIn, all the stuff, all the networks that we have. But that experience itself changed me, because that was something I was fearful of, because I was that person. I'll hold your door. I'll do everything. Thinking I'm super helpful, but really this person just wants to talk or tell me, hey, can you, she'll ask me, Ben, can you open the door? Some people just assume, they just want to push me to I don't need that, you know. So, yo soy dominicano, nací aquí, en Rhode Island, y yo sé que no es fácil adaptarse aquí. Pero gracias a Dios, uno siempre viene con mucho orgullo de su país. Y en realidad cuando uno llega aquí y uno avanza, y esa es la cultura de uno trabaja duro. Y yo sé los sacrificios que mis padres hicieron. Entonces, para todos mis estudiantes que son latinos, que son primera generación aquí, nosotros sabemos cómo trabajar, eso no es problema. Pero también nosotros debemos tener orgullo de dónde somos siempre, y nunca olvidarnos de dónde venimos. Y siempre llevarnos la historia de nuestros padres y toda la gente que nos trajeron aquí nunca se va. Eso siempre se queda aquí. Y tú lo traes en todas tus clases. Y nunca olvides traer tu sazón en todo lo que tú haces. Porque eso en realidad es oro. Y siempre te mantiene fuerte con quien tú eres. En todos los espacios que te pongas. Y todo el poder que te llegue y toda la educación que te llegue, lo que sea. Porque aquí estamos siempre para ayudar a nuestra familia. Y no es más complicado que eso. That's the quick spiel I wanted to